So after all of this, I'm thinking of something I heard Srila Guru Maharaj say recently with regard to Krishna consciousness. And he said, well, actually, I'll read it from these notes. He said, there is a saying, and he's singing a Bengali song, and that Bengali song says, if I can be mad besides my reason, leave my reason behind, can cross by reason the world, the plane of reason, then I shall feel much satisfaction. If I become mad, rather than a sane man in this plane, I want to be mad. Then he quotes the Bengali, which is Puggle hoite, something Ami, Jabo, Brahma Puggle, Vishnu Puggle. So, he's saying, and it's not just a tangent, it's not just some history. He's saying, nowadays we hear it's this famous place of learning. Right? And more specifically, what kind of learning? Nyai. Nyai means logic, rational thinking. Right? That's what it was famous for. That's why it's very important that these pastimes begin there. It's a peripheral reason, but a reason nonetheless. So in the place where they are completely established in logic, they're the gurus of logic. Right? That's what Navadvip was at the time of Mahaprabhu. Everyone in India knew it, had this reputation. The greatest pundits stood there, the greatest logician, the greatest nyayic thinkers. Nyay is Sanskrit for logic. So that's where they are. And what's being sung in this song is saying that three Puggle people, Puggle means crazy, three crazies entered Navadvip and started smashing all of this logic and rational thinking. Who are they? They're Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Right? Who are the three crazy people? Right? Brahma means Haridas Thakur, as we sometimes say, Brahma Haridas. Right? Vishnu, in this case, means Nimai Pandit. Right? And Shiva, in this context, means Advaita Acharya. So the three of them, they're the three Puggle, the three crazy people, who are smashing all the logic of the logicians of Navadvip. Right? So, the real world enters. Huh? It's going to just be what it is. Okay. So, I just want to see, and he said, he says, what is desirable for Brahma and Shiva has been pulled down in this worldly, ordinary plane, and they are dancing, chanting, and playing on mridanga madly, and ordinary people are very satisfied. Right? And the logicians are puzzled. What is this? Mad, abnormal thinking. So what is normal to the plane of logicians? We want to neglect that. No logic. Right? So when Mahaprabhu is called over by Prakasananda Saraswati, the leader of 60,000 Mayavadi sannyasis, he's saying, you look like a very dignified person and very honorable and respectable, but we hear, word has come to us that you're singing, dancing, chanting, getting emotional, expressing different types of sentiments. So that's not the proper behavior, mood, and characteristics for a sannyasi. The sannyasi should be engaged in studying seriously the scriptures and have a grave persona about them. And so these are the rumors I've heard. I don't know how so far it's true. Right? So Mahaprabhu's response to that there's a very famous sloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Evam Brata Swapriyanama Kirtya. Gotta be a little quiet, whispering. Jatanurago Drutachitta Uche Hasatya Atto Roditi Roti Gayati Unmadavan Nritri Loka Bhaja. So it says that Mahaprabhu is answering him by saying, my Guru Maharaj, he could see that I didn't have the adhikar, I wasn't so qualified to study philosophy, Vedanta, and such things. So he told me, considering your lack of qualification, and he called me Murkha, which means foolish. He said, you just take this Krishna Nam, chant. You could see I was a simple-hearted person. You just take this Krishna Nam and chant this holy name, and you don't need to focus so much on the study of Vedanta and other things. And then Mahaprabhu said, I began taking Krishna Nam, like in Guru Maharaj's song, and echoing the what was expressed in Chaitanya Charitamritam, Krishna, 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 Nama, Kirtanam. What's the next line? Nama. Yatra Tatra Krishna Nama. Danya Loka Nishtaram. Prema Dhamma Devameva Nomi Gora Sundaram. It's also expressed in the beginning, Krishna Nama Siddhu Dhamma Danya Dana Sagaram. That Krishna Nam is the abode of all nectarine substances. So Mahaprabhu is saying, I found Nimai Pandit saying, after my guru gave me this mantra, I would chant the mantra, and then sometimes I would experience ecstasy, my hairs would be standing on end, tears are coming down. Sometimes I'm laughing madly, like a madman, just laughing. And he describes all the ecstatic effects of taking Krishna Nam. He said, so I went back to my guru and said, what kind of a mantra have you given me? What is this? And when and the guru said, what is the problem? He said, I'm taking this name, and sometimes I'm crying, sometimes I'm laughing like a man, my hairs are standing on end, I'm falling on the ground, I'm becoming stunned in the process. And his Gurudev went, oh, Hare Krishna, we've read about this in the scriptures, that for those who are pure, there's a state of divine happiness and madness, that they will, for those whose heart is pure, who can offensively chant the holy name of Krishna, these will be the effects. Right? Like, what is it? In the Shikshastakam, it says, after Asli Shabha Paravatampanam, no, not that. The crying sloka. Nadanam Nadanam Sananam Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Vihitanam Vishanam. What's the next sloka? Yugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravishaitam Sunyaitam. Anyway, there's, actually in one sense, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Boulevard. This is alright. Anandam Boulevard Pratipitam Punamritas Vadanam from Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So, anyway, Mahaprabhu's guru took it that, yes, when we're told if one can chant the holy name of Krishna offenselessly, then the natural outcome is spiritual ecstasy. So you're very blessed. And that was the beginning of his description to Prakasananda Saraswati Thakur. But then, we should point out, at first, the reason he noticed Mahaprabhu, because as is the custom in India, when walking, it's dusty there, the feet get dirty, so when you reach the doorway, you wash your feet first, and then go and take your seat. But Mahaprabhu, after arriving, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and washing his feet, he sat in that area, which is, you can say, considered to be a little unfit, unclean. But at the same time, sitting there in a potentially dirty place, or a conventionally dirty place, everyone noticed this incredible effulgence that had entered the room. So they're all drawn towards this divine radiance emanating from him. And that's when Prakasananda, you're sitting, Your Holiness, please, come here. Right? What is that effulgence? Rupa Goswami gives us a hint, because it's the external manifestation of what's going on internally with Mahaprabhu. So in the Chaitanyastakam, it says, Raso Dhamma Kamar Buddha Madhura Madhurojula Tanur Jatinam Utangshas Tarani Karabidyoti Basana Hiranyanam Lakshmi Varan Abhibavan Angika Rucha Sat Chaitanya Kime Punarapi Dashor Yashati Padam. So here Rupa Goswami is giving some description of Mahaprabhu. Hiranyanam Lakshmi Varan Abhibavan Angika Rucha, this golden effulgence, but then Jatinam, as a sannyasi, Jatinam Utangshas Tarani Kara Vidyoti Bharsana. So great was the radiance coming from Mahaprabhu's heart, infused with Radha Bhava, Duty Subalita Nomi Krishna Surupam, that not only was his complexion radiant like molten gold, but the sannyas vesh was also as if it was being illuminated. So all the clothes covering him, they were also glowing. That's how great his effulgence was. So they invited him in, and then of course he discussed with him the actual meaning of the Vedanta Sutra, converted Prakasananda Saraswati, who had 60,000 followers. So as the guru, so the disciples, by converting him, 60,000 sannyasis were also converted. Right? But anyway, Srila Guru Maharaj, he makes this point from time to time, where he's saying, as Mahaprabhu tells Ramananda, that he says, Ami ek botul tumi dvitiya. I wouldn't keep moving that, because I may open this again. Yeah. All right, leave it there for now. I'll try not to open this again. He says, I am the first crazy, and you're the second. And what does that mean? It's paralleled in a Bhagavad Gita sloka. It says, Yani Sha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami. That what is night for one is the time of awakening for another, and vice versa. So it means there's a world where someone's awake in that world, and everything is understandable, perceivable to them. And it's like madness to ordinary people. But is it madness, or is it something substantial? Srila Guru Maharaj would give the example of Einstein, right? Saying that what makes sense in the brain of Einstein, that might appear to be madness to an ordinary person. But does that mean that Einstein is crazy, or an ordinary person is crazy? If he writes one of his formula on the board, he's saying, what is that? These symbols, it looks crazy to an ordinary person. If he starts explaining one of his theories, they can say, what is he talking about? Right? But is it that he's mad and what he's talking about makes no sense? There's nothing of value there, nothing substantial? Or this is why we designate him Einstein, and we recognize that we may not be able to appreciate what is there, but those who have some ability or capacity, they can verify that there's something substantial there. So, in a similar way, Mahaprabhu and his followers were misperceived, thought to be mad. Sukadeva Goswami was thought to be mad. Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj was thought to be mad. Right? Sukadeva Goswami, we hear before he arrives at the Sukar Tal, and where Parikshit Maharaj has assembled with all these sages, that he's 16 years old, he's wandering naked, right? Children are yelling at him, calling him names, throwing things. Right? So from their point of view, he just looks like another puggle, crazy person. When he walks into the assembly of these sages, they're the greatest sages in the universe. They've assembled by mystic power. They've come from all different parts of the universe to give advice to Parikshit Maharaj. When they see Sukadev, they have the opposite reaction. So the normal people thought he was crazy. The highly evolved people, it's mentioned there because they are adept in the art of physiognomy. They can tell by looking at his body, the shape, the structure, right? There are some beautiful slokas there just telling about the beauty of the neck of Sukadeva Goswami, of his divine Sukadeva Goswami. By just viewing him, they can understand that he's not crazy, but actually he is a liberated soul of the highest rank. So what do? Although these are sages with big beards, recently in India, Janardhan Maharaj was telling you that Gurudev used to tell some story where they would sit stroking their beards, going like, "Can do? Yes, we can." You know, these sages, they have beards down to their knees. They elevate a 16-year-old naked boy to the presidential seat. Right? Sukadeva Goswami is offered the Vyasa-san. 16-year-old naked boy. Why do they do it? They haven't heard him say anything yet. Just by looking at him, and also he's legendary. They've heard something. Oh, this is that Sukadev that we heard. He was a liberated soul within the womb of his mother. That's part of his legend. So he didn't come out. When he came out, he was already fully developed. Right? And that's one of the reasons why they offer him this position. Because up to this point, they're giving Parikshit Maharaj advice on the basis of what helped them. And that's a natural thing to do. We share. If someone's suffering from something, and you were suffering in a similar way, and something's helping you to repair your health or improve, you can naturally share it with that person. But when Sukadeva Goswami comes, his position is unique because he was never suffering from illusion. He wasn't a conditioned soul before. So his advice is going to be unique. And Parikshit Maharaj, because he was getting different advice from different sages, someone saying, you should do yoga, someone, you should do tapasya, you should give in charity, you should do this. There's karma yoga, jnana yoga, different ways to approach this. Parikshit Maharaj said, look, I have 7 days time, and all the recommendations you're giving me, you could devote a whole lifetime to studying any one of them. You could devote your whole life to practicing any one of these things. It's all good advice. But since I have a short amount of time on my hands, what I'd like you to do is get together and present a unanimous verdict, something you all agree on. So it's just after making that suggestion that he wants to hear this one suggestion that will be the unanimous verdict of the whole assembly. That's when Sukadeva Goswami arrives. And he's legendary. Guru Maharaj says he's selected to be the loudspeaker for the Srimad Bhagavatam. We may wonder sometimes, why does it come from someone who's a known, say, Brahmavadi, right? He's not famous at this point as a devotee. He's famous as being a liberated soul in the sense of established in the nirguna plane, right? As we told, a Brahmavadi, because someone from that position holds the authority to be the loudspeaker for these pastimes of Krishna. So when he introduces himself, he says, Parinistitopi nairgunye uttamasloka lilaya grihita cheta rajarse akyanam aditavan. He says, everyone knows, Parinistitopi nairgunye, I was situated in the nirguna plane. Right? Nirguna. The saguna world means tama, raja, sattva, ignorance, passion, goodness, mundane qualities, from gross to subtle. But I was situated in the nirguna plane, means transcendental to all of that. Trigunatita, beyond the plane of the three gunas. What is some of the evidence of that? Everything in the Bhagavatam is significant, and also in its sequence. We hear prior to that being raised in the ashram of Vedavyas, at one point he's leaving, Sukadev's running away from home, and Vyas is running after him. Sukadev runs by a pond where ladies are bathing. Guru Maharaj points out they're also divine ladies, that they're bathing there, and they're bathing totally naked. When Sukadev comes by, they don't even bother to clothe themselves. Then Vedavyas, he's chasing after Sukadev. My son, my son. When Vedavyas comes, the famous, great Vedavyas with the big beard and the whole, he's a great sage. Right? The women, they're like covering themselves. And Vedavyas says, I don't understand. When my son, nobody bothered to cover themselves, now I'm here, everybody's become shy and concealing. They said, yes, because we saw in his eyes, he doesn't distinguish male or female. There's no tinge of mundane sexuality in him. That we know. And me? No, right. We're not so sure, so they're, no. But for Sukadev, they said, we can see not even a tinge of mundane sexual tendency in him. So we can think, what is the significance of telling this? Is it just, it's an interesting anecdote, right? It's an interesting story. Or is it setting the stage for introducing Sukadev Goswami as someone being qualified to speak about the pastimes of Krishna, Radharani, Braja Gopis? So, with this sort of certification, what it means is, so when Sukadev says, Parinistitopi naragunye uttama shloka lilaya. So I was situated in the nirguna plane, no interest in anything mundane. Then uttama shloka lilaya. I heard about the divine pastimes of Krishna, including his pastimes with Radharani and Braja Gopis. Then what happened? Grihita cheta rajarse akyanam yadaditavan. Then it was this, my whole existence, my whole consciousness was carried away to another domain that I did not know existed previously. I was carried away to another world. Like, we know this story, and whether it's in a book, in a movie about the man who's carried away, he goes to another world and he comes back to tell his tale. But here is the most remarkable tale. First of all, because it's real. It's not a story that's been manufactured by the imagination of men. It's not, as one writer called it, Adventures of the Intelligence. No, this story is real. Sukadev giving himself as evidence. I was carried away to another domain. So that's why it's critical that we hear the first story. He has no interest in the sexual affairs of men and women. That is of no interest to him. But when he heard the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and the Braja Gopis, he was captured heart and soul. So what does it tell us? The pastimes of Radha and Krishna and the Braja Gopis are not tinged by any mundane quality. They think, what is the significance of that? That means that it opens the door for the opportunity, the prospect, muktir hitvanyata rupam svaropena vibhastati, that in the spiritual domain, in the spiritual world, the erotic principle is in its full, natural, pristine play. Right? This is something that's previously inconceivable. It's not described anywhere in any scripture or theistic system. It's inconceivable, it's unthinkable. Right? But he's carefully indicating that this prospect, this possibility is there. Right? As Srila Guru Maharaj was explaining with regard to Sambandha Abhideya Prayojan, Sanatan Rupa Raghunath, Madan Mohan Govinda Gopinath. Why first deity is Madan Mohan? Madan means Cupid. That means the eros, the erotic principle. As Freud said, the whole material world is spinning on the basis of this principle. He discovered some profound primal truth, that it's the sexual principle that is driving all of existence. Right? And then on the basis of that, he's engaged in some type of analysis. So he's identified something profound, and then he's making certain observations based upon that. We're not, giving him a blanket endorsement. We're just saying he discovered this principle, yes, which is described in Sanskrit as Madan, right? Cupid, Eros. So everyone is under the influence, right, in this world. What does Madan Mohan mean? Why shall that first deity be identified as Madan Mohan? Is that moha means illusion. So normally what we're saying is, borrowing from Dr. Freud and now Krishnizing. We want to Krishnaize Dr. Freud. We want him to have lots of sukriti, and we expect to see him in the future. Bhakta Freud. So go from Dr. Freud to Bhakta Freud. Entschuldigung, Sie bitte, Bhakta Freud. Verstehst du? So anyway, so the first principle to understand that Madan, Eros, Cupid is creating moha, illusion, and that's why the illusory world is being driven by this principle. Right? It's what makes it spin. But here, so we'll say, Madan's creating moha for the jiva souls. Eros is creating illusion for everyone. This driving principle of material existence. With Madan Mohan means Krishna is so beautiful, so seductively charming, that Krishna is creating moha, illusion, for Madan. Krishna is putting Eros into illusion. Eros is being seduced by the Krishna conception. So, as Guru Maharaj will say in regard to Mahaprabhu, Koti Kami Murchitangri Rupa Rasa Rangaram, Cupids are fainting to see the beauty. Right? Hiranyanam Lakshmi Varan, Abhibavan Angika Rucha. Sometimes we use the expression, and it's common usage, they'll say, someone is painfully beautiful. You look at them, and they're so beautiful that it's it's some kind of pleasant pain we experience. Like, you can't stop looking at them. You look at what you want to look back. But when you look, if you look too long, they're just painfully beautiful. Right? That's what that is the type of beauty that when Srimati Radharani's heart is enveloping Krishna, he looks so painfully beautiful that 10 million cupids are swooning. Right? So, that's Mahaprabhu. But same thing, Krishna, same, but different. As they say in Thailand, same, but different. That's a Chintya Beda Bed in Thai. Same, but different. I think we'll capture the Thai people with that sutra. So, Madan Mohan, same, but different. Achintya Beda Bed, Yang Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam. So, Krishna So Beautiful. Now, Cupid is bewildered. The way we become bewildered under the influence of Cupid or Eros. Now, Eros personified has been seduced by the seductive charm of Krishna. Therefore, it's Madan Mohan. And it's in the first position. He occupies the first position. But Srila Guru Maharaj is saying, what do we learn from this? One thing we take away from this, it's pointing in the direction of telling us that principle, that prospect, that possibility can be redirected properly towards Krishna conception. So the charm of Madan Mohan Vigraha is taking the jiva in a particular direction of self-determination, of self-realization. And without going into the details, it's indicated by inference. Means that what we thought could only be expressed or explored in this plane, that type of loving intimacy, has not only its possibility or prospect in the upper world, but reaches its fullest expression there. Right? So, beautifully, and the fullest expression of the Supreme Reality, Atma Siddha Sava Lila Purna Sokya Lakshanam. What's the fullest expression of the Supreme Reality, according to Srila Guru Maharaj? He's saying, it necessarily must be Mahaprabhu. Even for those who are addicted to Krishna conception, they must recognize that the fullest expression is in Mahaprabhu, because if we factor in Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha, Krishna Nahayanya, the divine combination of Radha and Krishna, or as Swarup Damodar says in the beginning, Hladini Shakti Rasmad. What was the first line? Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti Rasmad Ekat Man Avapi Bhuvi Pura Bedam Deham Bedam Gatoto. That formerly they were one, then they separated, they become one again. They said here mystically, again, Achintya Beda Bed. Who can say which came first? Krishna Leela or Gaur Leela? Which comes first, the gift or the giver? Right? So they're mutually coexistent. Right? Radha, Krishna, Nitya Leela, Korilo, Prakash. Both Gaur Leela and Krishna Leela are coexistent, inconceivably. But Raso Varjam Rasopyasya Param Drishva Nivartate. Srila Guru Maharaj said a higher taste is realized through Gaur Leela, because it's the magnanimous distribution of Krishna Leela. And here we'll see if Radha and Krishna combine as Mahaprabhu, then and by dint of that combination, we can conceive of Gaur Leela in a superior position, because in addition to their both being there, It's also has the Odarja aspect of distributing Krishna Leela, distributing Vrindavan, giving entrance into Vrindavan and Krishna Leela. Yata yata Gaura Padara Vinde Vindeta Bhaktim Krita Punirasi Tata Tatot Sarpati Hridya Kasmat Radha Padam Bhoja Sudam Burasi. But who will believe this? Crazy people. So we're going to put a little sign here that says, for this one, for madmen only. That's my favor to you. For madmen only. Right? So that's why he came back to this song. He's saying, I'll be happy if I'm not sane in this world. In this world where the so-called sane people have no appreciation for Guru, Gauranga, Radha Govinda, and all these things. It would be better to be insane than to be a sane member of that world. It's something like that. Once I was having a discussion with Srila Guru Maharaj, and some godbrothers, they're complaining about me that I spent too much time like head in the clouds and not feet on the ground, like paying attention to management and things like that. And so I was presenting this to him like as a legitimate criticism. I said, because I was withdrawing from the former institution and society. And so it was an appropriate discussion. And I learned from Guru Maharaj, you should try and be brutally honest with yourself. And so I was saying, I think what they're saying is true to a certain degree. Whereas I have to concede this point. And he said, I disagree. He said, many can manage men, money, building. He said, but those who can extract something from the upper world and distribute it down here, he said, that is something that is very rare to find. And that made me happy. But then he said, but if they're saying that you have these, you're disqualified in different ways and you have so many bad qualities, he said, then why have you come for my association? And then he said, birds of a feather flock together. And I thought, if I can be a little tiny bird in his flock, Hare Krishna. Any question? Questions, comments, retractions? Yes.
If you can tell something about your impressions of this year Parikrama, it will be very
Oh, all right. I can say that we just came back from India in this year's Navaditam Parikrama, and that Srila Acharya Maharaj, he organized a wonderful festival. It was probably attended by more people than ever, than any year previously. It went on smoothly, without hitch. And Srila Avadut Maharaj, he brought 60 Russian devotees. And remember, when I say Russian devotees, it means Russians, people from the Ukraine, people from Moldova, people from Kamchatka, from Khabarovsk, people from Siberia, people from Belarus, people from Latvia. So you know what I mean. People from China, they're all They're also Russians, Americans, people from Australia, they're also Russians. So when I say Russians, you know what it means. It means like... Right, if you have a lot of association with Avadut Maharaj, then on some level, you're by dint of his association. So and what was interesting also is that realizing that some of these devotees, they'd never been to India before. Some of the devotees here, you've been many times, but Avadut Maharaj is very conscious of things and very sensitive, so he realized some of them, this is the beginning, this is the first time. They may not know where they are. What is the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat? Who is Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, this divine place, the deities? So we began their Navadip Dham Parikrama, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur described the Navadip Dham Parikrama and what's in his books, the Navadip Dham Mahatmyam, or Guru Maharaj described as a topographical view. Like if you were flying over the Dham, and by that I mean the actual Dham, like in a helicopter or something, and you could see everything. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mystically revealing the significance of all the 9 islands of Navadip. But we realize we need to start at the very beginning. So the first class Avadut Maharaj arranged was on the veranda of Srila Guru Maharaj. And we realized, by way of informing the devotees there, that this is the place. You can see, here's the chair where Srila Guru Maharaj sat, and here's where he spoke the search for Sri Krishna, reality the beautiful, Sri Guru and his grace, the golden volcano of divine love, loving search for the lost servant, the subjective evolution of consciousness. Here's where he composed the Prema Dhamma Deva Stotram, where he compiled and published the Prapanna Jivanamritam. His Gayatri explanations, the hidden meaning of the Gayatri Mantram. We realized from this, because Srila Guru Maharaj, he didn't leave his veranda for maybe the last practically 30 years of his life. 25, 30, whatever it is, he didn't leave. So all of this wealth that Srila Guru Maharaj said was stored in him by Srila Saraswati Thakur, as he once told, he said, I tried to collect the maximum from my Guru Maharaj, and I did. He said, but my tendency for distribution was not so great. Because he told this to me when I came to offer myself to him in service and to stay with him for the rest of my life. And he said, so if I understand right, you're saying your life's engagement is going to be making recordings of me. Right? And I said, yes. And he said, and that's when he said, I tried to collect them, because he could understand that is going to be my method for collection from him. That's his word, collection. So he said, my tendency for collection was that great. I wanted to collect the maximum from my Guru Maharaj, and I did. He said, but my tendency for distribution is not so great. And that's a little bit hard to conceive, because we have 1,000 hours of tapes of Guru Maharaj distributing this substance. But what he means to say is that sometimes his godbrothers like Srila Bhakti Daita, Madhava Maharaj would come and hear such high conceptions from Guru Maharaj. He would say, you're cheating the educated public. Because what does he mean? You stay here on your rooftop in Navadip and you have this, you're the best preacher on the earth planet. You're the best preacher of Krishna consciousness of the 20th century. After Saraswati Thakur. Right? You're carrying the conception of Bhakti Vinod. You're the Rupa Nugadara and you're on your rooftop. I want to take you to Calcutta. I want to arrange for big meetings for you. But Guru Maharaj's tendency is, as he said, to distribute some high substance in a small circle. So, he said, it was by divine arrangement that we all came along And in his final days, the wealth, the full wealth that he had collected from Srila Saraswati Thakur, it all started coming out. He was meant to preach in the English language. That's by his own admission. So when did all of this English preaching take place? Really, from 1981 onwards. So in this period, it wasn't accidental, is what I'm trying to say, that we came to the lotus feet of Srila Guru Maharaj and all of this happened. It was by divine arrangement. In his final days, as he's ready to leave the world, the treasury, this immeasurable treasury stored in him, right? The substance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Saraswati Thakur, the revelation of the Gayatri Mantra, and so many other things. You think about that. No one revealed the inner meaning of Gayatri as he did in the history of Vedic culture. I mean, it's going back to Brahma. You can go into the pages of the Bhagavatam. It's Srila Guru Maharaj who revealed the meaning of the Brahma Gayatri. That's one thing. It's just one indication of his stature. So, this treasury stored in him came out in his final days. And it's at the Mat, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, where this took place. Right? But again, if we're to conceive properly what is Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, then we'll turn to Guru Maharaj. What does he say is the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat? Srimad Chaitanya Saraswata Matabara Udgita Kirtir Jayasrim. He wrote the Mat's Pranam Mantram to have a proper conception of what was his intention, what is his purpose, and what is the substance of its what I sometimes call spiritual architecture. The conceptual architecture of the Mat is encapsulated in the Mat Pranam Mantram, where he tells us there what its purpose is, and it's consistent with everything he's given. Udgita Kirtir Jayasrim, to loudly proclaim the glories of Srimati Radharani. That means necessarily Mahaprabhu's conception, Jari Gorna Hoita Tabiki Hoita, Kemoni Doritam Dehe, Radhar Mahima, Prema Rasasima, Jagata Janata Ke. So, anyway, we began showing the devotees, here's where Srila Guru Maharaj, all these divine expressions came from him that later became publications. Then the Mat itself with the relief that shows Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill, which is indicative. What's the location? Ganga Tata Nikata Navadvipa Koladri Raje, on the banks of the Ganga in Navadvip, where Koladri Adriraj means Govardhan, Gupta Govardhan. So it's in Navadvip Dham, on the banks of the Ganga in Gupta Govardhan. That's like the GPS, the spiritual GPS, the location of the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. And there, and what takes place there, they're broadly, loudly proclaiming the glories of Srimati Radharani, her greatness, the limits of divine love. Gauraga Tagrananti, their primary engagement is talking about Mahaprabhu, singing his glories, extending his teachings to others, practicing them, following them. Nityam Rupanuga Shri Kritimati Guru Gauranga Radha Jitasa. In the line of Rupa Goswami, harboring in the heart the aspiration to one day Radhika Madhavasham, to serve the holy lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, Radha Dasyam. It's all clearly indicated there. The conceptual architecture is found there, and it's the superstructure it's the steel frame upon which the superstructure of the Mat is indicated. So in this way, from Guru Maharaj's veranda to the temple entrance to the Pujala Ragapat Gaurava Bange notion that Ragamarg, our target is to serve Ragamarg from the lower position. Right? to the samadhi of Srila Gurudev, Srila Guru Maharaj, to the veranda of Srila Gurudev, where so many of his pastimes took place. In this way, Srila Avadut Maharaj began the tour, the Navaditam Parikrama. The first place to understand was where you are. You're at the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. Right? And the Aparad Bhanjaner Pot, where all the offenders are forgiven their offenses. Right? Before we leave the gate and go and discover and honor, worship these other places, first understand where you are. And as Guru Maharaj told, when I've said this many times, when a devotee asked upon entering through the gates of Chaitanya Saraswat Mat and Navaditam, inquiring, what shall be my service now that I am here? And Guru Maharaj said, to acquire the proper angle of vision. Right? How do you acquire the proper angle of vision? By coming under the influence of the lens, the devotional seeing of Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, and Vaishnav. Then we can have some appreciation for what is the Dham, what is Nam, what is Kirtan, all of these things. Otherwise, our tendency will be to see it in a superficial way. Right? Eye exercise from the image, the perverted image of an eyeball making impressions on, mentally, intellectually. That's not our interest. We're not tourists. We're not tourists going on a tour of India. Right? We want to go on the Navadip Dham Parikrama. The Navadip Dham Parikrama began with Nityananda Prabhu. The first Guru Maharaj says Nityananda Prabhu and Jiva Goswami. That's the standard. Second was Srinivasacharya and Narottam Thakur. Right? They're not interested in what is India. Right? Another type of seeing is required. So anyway, that gives you some idea from my perspective of what took place there, but it went on very nicely, and as I said, probably more people attended this year than previously. It's becoming, what's the word, by magnitude, and like on a Richter scale, when something just reaches this astronomical magnitude of so many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly, of parikramis, and pilgrims making the pilgrimage, going from one holy place to another. Hare Krishna.